Have you ever felt that the more you try to be clear, the more he pulls away? What if that's exactly what's killing the connection, and you don't even realize it? I'm Nira Elowin, and maybe today you'll understand that the right kind of silence is worth more than 1,000 well-intentioned words. Today, you'll discover the subtle patterns that sabotage attraction, and you'll learn how to stop over-explaining. Before you start losing yourself, when you become the caption to your own presence, you start to speak, and already feel anxious about needing to be understood. You explain, justify, even translate your silences, as if every nuance of you needs a subtitle. But what should create closeness drains the mystery. And where there's no mystery, there's no intrigue. This is called emotional over-anticipation. Your brain, conditioned by rejection, tries to avoid pain before it even happens. So you get ahead of everything. You give it all. You reveal every behind-the-scenes layer of what you feel. But love isn't born in control. It grows in the space between what's seen and what's still left to be discovered. You've been there. You tried to be as transparent as possible just to avoid misunderstanding. You said how you felt, said you missed him, asked what was wrong. You only wanted to clear the air, to be understood. But the more you said, the more distant he seemed. Stop trying to translate yourself for someone who doesn't want to understand you. You're not a foreign film with subtitles. If he wants to know how you feel, let him pay attention. When you become fully decipherable, your presence loses symbolic value. That immediate clarity, that urgent, let's get everything resolved energy, often creates distance, not security. Because now, there's no room for curiosity. Nothing to miss, no space for wonder, doubt, or fascination. Train yourself in intentional, unspoken space, not as manipulation, but as self-respect. Because a well-placed silence has more power than 1,000 words offered out of need. The woman who over-translates herself loses the poetry of being an enigma, and no soul connects with a manual of instructions. So breathe, leave pauses between words, resist the urge to justify everything, let him discover you, without you shoving your soul down his throat. You don't need to be completely understood to be truly desired. You just need to stop making yourself so obvious for someone who never tried to read between the lines. The addiction to emotional symmetry, you make a gesture and deep down expect him to match it. You send a message and count the minutes until he replies. You care for him and want the same level of care in return. Not because you love less, but because you learn to love while expecting equal return. This is the trap of symmetrical affection, trying to build love with rulers, stopwatches, and scales. But real love doesn't fit into graphs. It's asymmetrical, misaligned, sometimes even awkward. And still, it's true. When you demand exact reciprocation, you're not seeking connection. You're trying to survive the fear of neglect. You're auditing affection like it's a spreadsheet. You're treating the other person like a mirror, and forgetting that the beauty of connection lies in the contrast between reflection and presence. This behavior has a name: compensatory speculation. It's when your brain, trained by abandonment, demands instant reciprocity as a way to feel safe. It interprets every delay as a threat, every imbalance as rejection, and suddenly, you're not responding to what you feel, but to what's missing. You've lived this. Rereading messages, counting interactions, noting who reached out last, wondering if you're being too much or not ignored enough. All this trying to balance a scale that never needed to exist. Here's the hard truth. The more you chase forced balance, the less space you leave for spontaneity, and love that comes from duty won't survive time. The most vibrant relationships are made of missteps that still dance together. You won't always receive what you give, but that doesn't make you worth less. Because those who truly love don't give as if handing out change at a cash register. They give because they feel it, not because they're being tracked. Emotional reorientation rituals help break this pattern. Instead of waiting for his message, write to yourself. Instead of counting what he gives, count the times you abandoned yourself to prove you were worthy. Instead of asking, "Why didn't he reply the same way?" ask, "Why does this shake me so much?" Are you nurturing a relationship? Or trying to enforce an emotional contract that was never signed? Here's the turning point. You don't need love that gives back the same. You need love that shows up, even when it doesn't reply right away. And if deep down, you're always asking for proof. Maybe what's missing isn't reciprocity, but the courage to admit he's not present. He's just hovering inside your desire. So stop, breathe, step out of emotional auditing, and remember, mature love isn't symmetrical, but it's always evident. Hidden sabotage disguised as constant presence. You want to be remembered. You want to be noticed. You want to be the kind of presence that leaves a mark. And in your attempt not to be forgotten, you show up too much, you talk too much, you offer too much. But the more you try to be essential, the more invisible you become. This is sabotage, dressed up as devotion. You believe that by always being there, he'll see your worth. That if you reply quickly, show interest, stay close, he'll see. He'll appreciate. He'll stay. But anxious presence is like background music stuck on high volume. Eventually, it fades into noise. In neuroscience, this has a name: adaptation to constant stimulus. The human brain, and the heart too, gets used to what's always available. The magic fades. The value gets diluted. Desire, which needs space to grow, begins to die from suffocation. You've been here before. Sending good morning every day, replying in seconds, always ready, always available, always trying to show you're different. And him? He didn't see it. Or worse, he saw it. But got so used to your constant presence that he stopped noticing your absence. But here's the twist. Your absence, when intentional and balanced, can spark more desire than your anxious presence ever could. Presence isn't about frequency. It's about depth. You can show up less and still be felt more. You can step back for a while and still be remembered more deeply than when you were silently begging for attention. Practice the art of rarefied presence. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about being whole. It's about not replying instantly. It's about not explaining every absence. It's learning to give space, even when everything in you screams for closeness. You don't need to be constantly available to be desired. You just need to stop being so predictable that you disappear. Think of perfume. The best one isn't the one that overwhelms. It's the one that arrives softly in chosen moments and lingers even after you're gone. Be that woman, not the one begging to be noticed, but the one whose silence leaves a trace. 4. Turning desire into an emotional resume, you fall in love and immediately start showing everything: who you are, what you feel, how much you care. You open the door, throw open the windows, invite him to see your soul, without even asking if he wants to come in. You believe that if he just sees how incredible you are, he'll choose to stay. But desire doesn't grow from full exposure. It grows from suggestion, and it dies under the weight of too much proof. You turn your emotional intensity into a resume, like you're applying for a job in someone's heart, as if he's the recruiter and you need to be approved. Without realizing it, you start listing your qualifications. I'm mature. I'm understanding. I've always been here. I'm different. But you know what happens to wine that reveals everything? In the first sip, it loses its depth. What could have been an experience becomes a summary. This is called the affective portfolio syndrome. when you feel like you need to present arguments in order to be loved. But real love doesn't come from arguments. It comes from enigmatic presence, from what is sensed, not explained. You've done this, tried to prove you were the best choice, shared your trauma, your strength, your healed scars, all in the hope that he'd recognize the value behind your story. But he didn't see it. Or worse, he saw too much and lost the mystery. Desire needs shadow, silence, space to imagine. You don't need to reveal everything all at once. You need to leave something to be discovered. The practice here is simple, yet powerful. Subversive presence. It's the opposite of emotional performance. It's being present, with soul, but without over-explaining. It's feeling, without turning it into a thesis. It's being, without trying to prove it. You're not an emotional investment proposal. You're a unique experience, not a cover letter. Don't hand over the map before he's even shown interest in exploring. If he wants to know who you are, let him stay. Let him observe. Let him ask. But don't anticipate every answer just to avoid being left, because every time you try to prove you're worthy, 5. The hidden neediness behind hyperavailability, you're always ready, always available, always there, not out of ease, but out of fear. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of being left behind the moment you finally step away. Hyperavailability isn't care. It's anxiety in disguise. You reply in seconds, offer help before he even asks, adjust to his schedule, his moods, his timing. And deep down, you only want one thing: to be noticed. But here's the truth. Being constantly present isn't a sign of love. Being constantly present is a way of erasing yourself. To the brain, that becomes background noise. Neuroscience explains, constant stimuli lose their impact over time. When you're always there, without pause, the other person stops noticing. Your presence stops being a choice and becomes scenery. You've lived this. Canceled your own plans to be available. Kept your phone close just to reply fast. Found ways to stay close even when he pulled away. But all of it just emptied you. Because the more you showed up, the less he made an effort to see you. That's the trap of hidden neediness. You're not showing up out of choice. You're a hostage to the absence you fear. And the more you try to be indispensable, the more invisible you become. The shift begins with the 20% silence rule. It's a simple exercise. In 1 out of every 5 interactions, choose silence. Not to punish, but to rebalance, to remind yourself that your presence is a gift, not an addiction. No one values a light that never goes out. It's the darkness that teaches the value of light. Give pauses, give space, give yourself, but also know when to step back. You don't need to prove that you're here. You need to learn how to be remembered, even when you choose not to be. The seductive urge to fix things in silence, you feel something is off. And before he even says anything, you're already trying to fix it. You soften your tone, preempt his discomfort, smooth over tension. You do everything to avoid conflict, everything to remain easy to love. But what looks like maturity is often just fear. Fear of being seen as the problem, fear of being discarded for setting a boundary, fear that any small flaw will give him a reason to walk away. It's the seduction of silent repair. You don't ask, you don't demand, you just adapt, quietly, trying to prevent and fix things before they even happen. It's like you're trying to be perfect all the time. But that illusion of emotional control, that false perfection, is actually a disguised form of emotional submission. Psychology calls this emotional anticipation. You were taught that love meant avoiding rejection, that it was better not to bother, not to ask, not to make mistakes. And so you became a woman who tries to fix everything, even when it's not your fault. You've done this. Felt him pulling away, and suddenly became extra sweet. noticed a shift in his mood, and apologized, even if you didn't know why. Adjusted your behavior just to avoid criticism that might not even come, and each time you did that, you betrayed yourself a little more. Here's the truth. Your attempt to be harmless is making you invisible. And desire, connection, and real intimacy, they don't grow in endless comfort. They grow in vulnerability, in contrast, in healthy friction. Allow micro discomforts. Don't respond right away. Don't fix what hasn't been broken. Let him feel the impact of his own actions. Practice non-response as a space for relational breathing. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be whole. Ask yourself, are you offering love? Or are you just trying to be light enough so he never has a reason to leave? Remember, the woman who tries to prevent every little disruption also prevents him from hearing his own silence, and sometimes it's in the discomfort that the truth finally appears. The loop of indirect validation. You ask, are we okay? Do you still think about me? Did you see what I sent you yesterday? But deep down, the real question is, do I still matter to you? This is the loop of indirect validation. You don't want a rational answer. You want the emotional relief of feeling like you still have a place in his emotional world. It's subtle, and that's what makes it so dangerous. Because it hides behind light conversation, curiosity, or care. But underneath is the weight of someone desperately needing external confirmation to validate what they feel inside. Neuroscience explains, every time you receive a signal of interest, a like, a quick reply, a compliment, your brain activates the reward circuit. It becomes addictive. Small doses of attention turn into fuel to stay in relationships where you already feel alone. You've done this. Sent a message just to see if he'd still reply. Created an excuse to spark conversation, just to test his presence. And when he responds, you feel relief. But then the doubt returns. Because it's not about what he says, it's about what you feel he doesn't say anymore. The more you search for signs, the less you see reality. You mistake crumbs for interest, politeness for intention, automatic responses for living affection. And deep down, you know, if something needs constant validation, it's not really being sustained. The shift comes with a practice called internal mirroring journaling, an exercise to differentiate between real intuition and conditioned insecurity. Every time you want to ask something seeking validation, ask yourself first, do I want the answer, or just to feel like I still matter to him? Validation isn't a crime, but dependence on it is a prison. You don't need to ask if he misses you. You need to observe whether he seeks you, even in silence. You need to notice movement, not just responses. The mirror only reflects what you already believe. And if you doubt your worth, any reflection will be distorted. You want to know if he still cares. But the more honest question is, why do I still need him to prove something that should already be obvious? 8. The exhaustion of being emotionally multitasked. You wake up already wondering how he might be feeling. You adjust your tone so you don't come across as too much. You replay every message in your head, trying to predict how he'll react. And, without realizing it, you've become the emotional manager of a relationship that isn't even mutual. This isn't care. It's emotional overload. You're exhausted. Not because you feel too much, but because you're trying to feel for both of you, anticipating pain, avoiding friction, filling silences that aren't even yours to fix. This behavior has a name: displaced emotional responsibility. It's when you unconsciously take on the role of emotional regulator, as if it's your job to keep the connection balanced, even if it means erasing yourself in the process. You've done this, planned your words to avoid conflict, ignored your own needs to avoid distance, did everything to make him comfortable, even when it made you uncomfortable. And what do you get in return? Silent exhaustion, invisible burnout, because no one sees the effort of someone who's trying to hold everything together before anything. even goes wrong. You are not the control tower of someone else's emotional airport. You don't have to ensure a smooth landing for anyone. Real connection doesn't require constant monitoring. It breathes, it pauses, it breaks, and still survives. The way out begins with intentional disconnection. Create neutral zones in your day, moments when you don't analyze texts, interpret emojis, or replay conversations. Turn off the radar. Come back to yourself. You don't need to predict his emotions. You need to recognize your own. You're always trying to be the woman who causes no problems. But what if this controlled version of you is the very reason you're not being truly felt? Affection doesn't need a manager. It needs honest presence. And honest presence only happens when you stop carrying everything. The woman who tries to anticipate everything the other feels ends up forgetting to feel her own truth. Let go of the control. It doesn't protect you. It only consumes you. You tried being clear, consistent, perfect. But what if all of that has only pushed you further from what truly matters? Do you want to keep explaining yourself to be loved, or start stepping back to finally be respected? If this message made you breathe differently, click subscribe. Some truths may sting, but they also set you free. Now tell me in the comments, which pattern did you lose yourself in while trying to be chosen? And if you still need strength to let go, watch the video that's now on your screen. It's the silent continuation of your courage.